Hi everyone, and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Chickling.
And yesterday we read a talk by a man named George Salmanazar.
He said he was from an exotic country in Asia, but he didn't tell us the name of the country.
He did tell us about its main city and its king, and also about its religion.
Okay, so people there worship the sun and moon, but also kill young men as part of the worship.
And there are other cruel things there as well, like men eating their wives if they cheat.
And people also eat snake meat, but only after hitting it to get rid of the venom.
Yeah, put all the venom in the head. Now, George says he was taken from his home by Catholic priests.
He said they tried to make him Catholic too, but he refused.
He later came to England and found the true God, which is the same God as the Catholics, but just worshipped in a different way.
Now he thinks of England as his home.
And he also wrote a book about himself.
But who was he really? And where was he really from?
Let's read through day 2 and find out.
Reading. Where in the world is George Salmanazar from? If you didn't believe George Salmanazar's story, then congratulations, you weren't fooled. But lots of people in England in the early 1700s were. Salmanazar claimed to be the first native of Taiwan, then called Formosa, in Europe. In reality, he was a white Frenchman who'd never even seen Taiwan. When asked why he didn't look Asian, Salmanazar said wealthy Formosans lived underground, so their skin stayed light. This wasn't the first time he'd lied about his birthplace. First, Salmanazar pretended to be Irish so he could travel more easily. However, many people knew about Ireland and quickly realized he was lying. Then he said he was Japanese. He did strange things like eat raw spiced meat and sleep sitting up to prove his story. It might seem crazy that anyone would have believed him. However, most Europeans had never met anyone from Asia. Jesuit priests who'd visited Taiwan called Salmanazar out as a liar. However, English people hated the Catholic Church and refused to listen. Later in life, Salmanazar confessed he'd made it all up. However, everyone was already tired of the Formosan craze, so they didn't care. He became a writer and lived an ordinary life until his death in 1763.
So day 2 begins by saying, if you didn't believe George Salmanazar's story, then congratulations, you weren't fooled. So it was all a lie.
I almost believed him. 所以呢，如果你没有相信 George Salmanazar 的故事，那么恭喜你，你没有被骗哦。
Right. However, we weren't, maybe you weren't, but some people were. We see, but lots of people in England in the early 1700s were. So now we know this was taking place around sort of 300 years ago. So you can imagine back then people didn't know so much about the world and they'd believe anything about a strange foreign land. We also see in the article that Salmanazar claimed to be the first native of Taiwan, then called Formosa, in Europe. So he was saying he's Taiwan-ren.
Okay, Taiwan-ren, okay.
Do you guys eat?
No, I've never
kill boys and eat wives and all the rest of that stuff?
I don't think
Eating snakes, yeah, that happens.
We still eat snakes.
Sometimes, right?
Not in
but
the past.
No, this doesn't sound right at all.
No.
But that's just what he claimed. To claim something is to say that something is true, or maybe that something is yours. However, we don't know if that's true or not when we say it. We have to check that later. I could claim that since my full name is Pat Woods, Tiger Woods is my cousin. Same name?
Yeah.
Is that true? No, of course it isn't. But I could claim it until you went and checked and found out I'm lying. Here's another sentence like that. The man claimed to be a doctor, but in fact he'd never been to medical school.
Claim 就是主张或宣称的意思，这边是当动词。那文章的意思就是在1700年代初期呢，很多英国人都相信这个 George 的宣言，然后他宣称自己是史上第一个来到欧洲的台湾本土人。那欧洲当时呢称台湾是福尔摩沙。那 claim 这个单字呢，也可以当索取啊或认领的意思。比如说 ，We found a book in the classroom. If no one claims it, we will just return it to the library. 那这个字呢，也可以当另外一个片语 to claim someone's life， 代表夺去谁的性命。比如说 ，thousands of lives were claimed by the hurricane.
So he claimed he was from Formosa, but as we see in the article, in reality, he was a white Frenchman, so from France, who'd never even seen Taiwan.
OK， 所以事实上他是一个法国的白人，他根本就没有看过台湾啊。
So people might think, well, hang on, you're white. So we see in the article, when asked why he didn't look Asian, Salmanazar said, wealthy Formosans, that's Taiwanese people, lived underground, so their skin stayed light, which is just bizarre.
I know.
But there you go. Wealthy. He's talked about wealthy people from Taiwan. Wealthy just means rich. If you're wealthy, you have lots of money and other possessions. For example, we could say, the wealthy family has several houses in different cities around Taiwan.
所以 wealthy 这边是富有的意思。那我们指富有的人的总称就是 the wealthy。那我们把 y 拿掉，就会变成名词，代表钱财。那如果你说很多财富，就是 a great amount of wealth， 代表你有很多钱。那你也可以说 a wealth of something，a wealth of something， 代表什么东西很丰富、很多。比如说 they're looking for someone with the wealth of public speaking experience。所以文章的意思就是，当有人问他为什么你长得不像亚洲人啊，然后他就说，因为富有的福尔摩沙人呢，台湾人都住在地下，所以皮肤会比较白。But does it make sense to me?
It does not at all. But we also read that this wasn't the first time he'd lied about his birthplace. Your birthplace is where you were born, though it may not be where you grew up. So my birthplace is Nottingham in England. My dad's birthplace is Belfast in Northern Ireland, but he came to England when he was about 5. His mother's birthplace is Mumbai in India, but she came to England when she was around 18.
Wow, OK， 所以 birthplace 就是出生地，这个字也很好记啊，因为 birth 就是出生，加上 place 一个地方就是你出生的地方，就像你的 birthday 就是你的出生日，就是生日。那文章就是这个不是他第一次针对自己的出生地撒谎了。
Right, we're going to read about his lies here. First, Salmanazar pretended to be Irish so he could travel more easily. Irish would be somebody who comes from Ireland. And to pretend to be something is to say you're that thing and act like that thing, but in fact, you're not. Children pretend to be things for fun. Actors pretend to be things as part of their job. That's okay. But some kinds of pretending are lying, and that's not okay. For example, someone could pretend to be another person so they could steal their money or credit card information. Or there's this. Johnny pretended to be his older brother so he could rent a car.
OK， 那 pretend 就是假装或装扮，所以我们通常会说 to pretend that blah 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 or to pretend to be 代表装扮成某人。比如说 She likes being around her boyfriend since that's when she doesn't need to pretend. 她喜欢在她男朋友旁边，所以她就不用假装什么东西了。那 pretend 这个字呢，也可以当形容词哦，就是有假装的或想象的意思。比如说 Don't take it too seriously. It's just pretend. 所以文章的意思就是他一开始呢假装成爱尔兰人，这样他可以比较容易的四处旅行游走。
Yeah, now this didn't work. We see in the article, however, many people knew about Ireland and quickly realized he was lying. So like, You're not Irish. I've met Irish people. You sound nothing like them. You don't know anything about Ireland. Ireland, of course, is a country that's close to the UK, but it's not part of the UK. Only the northern bit of this island, which is called Northern Ireland, is in the UK. The other part, called the Republic of Ireland or ERA, is not.
OK， 所以然而呢，很多人都知道爱尔兰这个地方，所以很快就知道他在撒谎了。
All right, so being Irish, fake Irish, didn't work. What then? We see, then he said he was Japanese. He did strange things like eat raw spiced meat and sleep sitting up to prove his story. If something is raw, it has not been cooked. Sashimi is raw fish, and many other kinds of sushi have raw ingredients as well. In a few dishes, beef is even eaten raw. Most fruits and vegetables can, of course, be eaten raw. So we could say, for example, Daniel bought some raw meat at the supermarket and took it home to cook.
Raw 就是食物呢没有经过烹调，是生的。比如说老师刚刚讲 sashimi， 它就是 raw。那生鱼片呢，生的鱼就是 raw fish， 生的牛肉就是 raw beef。那 raw 这个字也可以当资讯没有经过处理的意思。比如说第一手的证据就是 raw evidence。那我们再造一个例句 ：Cooked meat must be kept separate from raw meat.
So George said, "Oh, I'm Japanese. I eat raw meat." I mean, yes, in Japan people eat raw fish.
And a frog.
Yeah, but I don't know if that quite adds up to what he was talking about. He also said that, like Japanese people, I sleep sitting up, which I've never heard of. And what this means is the same as George slept while he was sitting up, or while he was sat up. We can cut down this phrase to make it shorter.
Yeah， 所以这个 George 他又说他自己是日本人哦，还做了一些很奇怪的事情来证明他是，像是吃调味过的生肉啊，或者是坐着睡觉。老师刚刚有讲 he slept sitting up， 就是坐着睡觉的意思，来证明说他就是个日本人。
So this is pretty bizarre, and we see in the article it might seem crazy that anyone would have believed him. Yeah, if somebody said that now, we'd be like, shut up, we can prove you're wrong. But remember, this was 300 years ago, and as the article says, however, most Europeans had never met anyone from Asia.
虽然呢，知道有些人相信他这件事情很瞎，不过那个时候大部分的人是从来不知道亚洲人是什么的，没有见过我们。
Okay, but not everybody believed him. We see Jesuit priests who'd visited Taiwan called Salmanazar out as a liar. To call someone out means to challenge them in a public way and say what they're doing something wrong, what they said is not true, and so on. You're telling the world that they are wrong or bad, and you want them to fix things. And sometimes to call someone out can also mean to offer to fight someone.
所以 call someone out 就是公开批评某人，那我们可以加上一个 on 来代表批评的事情。比如说 to call someone out on something， 我们可以造一个 The teacher called me out on my behavior， 代表老师公开批评我的行为。
So these Jesuit priests, who were from the Catholic Church, they'd been visiting Taiwan for years. There was a movie made up about this kind of thing, Silence. That's set in Japan, filmed in Taiwan, but it's that kind of priest. And some of these priests called George out by saying he was a liar. A liar is a person who tells lies. We usually use this word to mean a person who tells lies a lot, or tells many lies about the same thing. If you just tell one lie, then yeah, you're kind of a liar, but the word is more usually used for someone who lies as a habit. For example, we could say, Howard is a liar, so don't believe him when he says he's poor and needs to borrow some money. He'll never pay you back.
Liar 就是骗子，所以你可以对一个很爱说谎的人说 You're such a liar， 你真的是个大骗子。或者是你说某一个人是骗子，就是 你可以讲 to call someone a liar， 那我就可以讲啊 You have to stop calling me a liar, just hear me out。 你不要再说我是骗子了，你要听我把话说完啊。那这个字呢，它的动词就是 lie， 代表说谎。那它的三态是 lie, lied, lied。那文章的意思就是曾经来过台湾的耶稣会神父呢，把 Samanazar 称为是骗子。
Okay, so a lot of people are saying like, you're a liar, you're not telling the truth, we've really been to Formosa. So why didn't they believe those people? Well, here's the answer. However, English people hated the Catholic Church and refused to listen. Yeah, around that time there were still religious wars in Europe between Catholics and non-Catholics, and at that time England was very much, no Catholics, go away, you're all liars, you're all tricksters, we're not believing anything because you're just trying to rule us again like you did before.
Yeah， 所以那时候呢，英国人是讨厌天主教会的，所以就不会听信他们的话。这边又出现一次 refuse， 就是拒绝的意思。
So what happens to Salmanazar in the end? We see in the article, later in life, Salmanazar confessed he'd made it all up. To confess means to say that something is true or to tell a secret that you've kept for a long time. You might confess how you really feel about someone, for example, or you might confess that, yeah, you're not really a cool rock star, you just play guitar in your bedroom. Often, we use confess after you've been keeping a secret or not telling the truth for some time. For example, we could say, Vera confessed to her mother that she'd skipped school on Friday to hang out with her friends.
Confess 就是坦白的意思，或承认罪行或错误，所以你可以对某人坦白 to confess to someone that 怎么样？或者你有一件事情要坦白，你也可以讲 I have something to confess， 就是我有事情要跟你说。那我们再造一个例句 Ray confessed to his girlfriend that he had been lying this whole time. Wow, that's so bad. 所以在宗教上呢，向上帝忏悔，我们也可以用 confess 这个字。比如说 to confess someone's sins 就是 sins 就是去忏悔呢你的罪过。那它的名词呢就是 confession， 就是坦白承认的意思。那动词呢可以加上 make， to make a confession 就是承认。比如说 we forced a confession out of her， 就是我们强迫她认罪。
So what did George confess? That he'd made it all up. To make something up means to create a story, very often a lie. We could make up an excuse to tell our teacher we've not done some homework, or maybe to hide where we really were and what we were doing. Now, this can often be a bad thing, but on the other hand, writers like me enjoy making up stories for entertainment.
所以 to make something up 就是去欺骗什么，去编造。那编造一个故事就是呢 to make up a story。所以之后呢 Samanazar 承认他之前讲的都是编造出来的。
However, we see in the article, however, everyone was already tired of the Formosan craze, so they didn't care. A craze is something that's really popular for a short amount of time, but which soon stops being popular. So here in England, there was a craze for Formosa. They wanted to learn about it, hear about it, meet a real Formosan, and then no one cared anymore. I remember for a while there was a craze in Taiwan and people were wearing glasses with no glass in them.
Oh my goodness.
But I don't see those anymore these days. It's kind of gone out. So.
That's like when I was in high school.
Right, that craze is gone.
所以这边就是 craze 的意思，就是风行一时的东西，狂热。但是呢，每一个人呢都已经对福尔摩沙这个热潮感到很厌倦啦，所以也 no one cares， 没有人在乎了。
We also learn about George that he became a writer and lived an ordinary life until his death in 1763. We can put any adjective into the phrase live a or live an something life. It describes what most of your life is like. For example, you might live an honest life. You always tell the truth. Or you live an exciting life full of action and interesting things. We could say someone lives a boring life, a sad life, or in this case, an ordinary life where nothing very unusual happens.
所以 live 什么什么 a life 就是live a blah 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 life 就是过着什么样的生活。所以老师讲了，你可以放任何形容词进去。所以好生活 to live a good life， 坏生活 to live a bad life。所以后来呢，这个 George 他就成为一个作家，过着平凡的生活，直到1763年就过世了。
So that's the end of the article. We'll now go to today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So today's question's an interesting one. Have you ever made someone believe in a big lie or believed one yourself? What was it and why was it believable? So we're not talking small stuff here, not talking stuff like, oh, I'm just texting this person as she's a friend kind of lie, but something big, something where they really believe something huge that isn't true.
I'm like the most gullible person ever, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Now don't worry, because they've taken gullible out of the dictionary.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So you're not gullible anymore.
Oh, yay. I'm not sure if this is big. I once received a call from a person claiming that he was from the bank, saying that there was something wrong with my order because I bought something online. And then, anyway, that guy made me go to 7-Eleven or the ATM machine to transfer him money.
Right.
And I thought he was telling the truth, and I almost did it. But before I did it, I called my parents. And I called my dad, and my dad was like, no, don't do it. And they stopped me from doing it.
That's crazy.
I know. I was like 20 or something. I was really young, and I didn't really know if it was true.
Right.
Is it big?
No, because you escaped and no one conned you, but that would have been bad. Yeah. I heard an interesting story about myself before. I don't know who started it. It wasn't me, but there was a story that I had been to RADA, the Royal Academy for like Dance and Arts and Theatre in the UK. I've not. I've never been to that. But I guess if I wanted to, if I could have been like George and said, yeah, I went to RADA. I knew people like Benedict Cumberbatch and all of those famous actors. Yeah, sure. But, and maybe they could believe it because I'm British and I do act. So, if you didn't check it out, you could possibly believe that. So there's some truth in it. But of course, it's not true. I've never attended RADA. I've never even been to drama school. I did it at A-level when I was at high school, and that's it. But yeah, it was a fun one to exist. But there you go. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks very much for watching, guys. And don't believe everything you hear. For English For You, I'm Pat.
I'm Chickling.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review.
Claim. Marty claims that his uncle is a famous actor, but no one believes him because he often makes up stories. Wealthy. The wealthy family bought an island to visit for their summer vacations. Pretend. Mona pretended to be a lion and chased her children around the house as they screamed loudly. Raw. It's usually best to cook food, but you can eat many kinds of fish raw. Liar. Eric is such a liar that no one trusts him, and his family is starting to give up on him. Confess. Gary confessed to the owner of the store that he had stolen the cookies from the cookie jar.
智慧小补帖
Birthplace. Craze.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net